Good to see everybody. Thanks for being here.
I guess we'll start off with Texas. When you look at the defense you guys played last year, what's kind of different, or what has impressed you most about what they've done this year?
Well, you know, they obviously have a lot of really athletic players at a lot of different positions, and then they have some depth behind it. So they're able to really play a lot of people, keep them fresh, keep them fast, and not take a step back, you know, in regards to personnel when the next group of people come in. I think that's especially apparent up front. And so you can see that they've grown quite a bit, you know, in a year that they've played, right? You can see them playing together. They're on the same page a lot. So it's impressive. We'll have our hands full, no doubt about it, as we would expect going down there. They're good.
You got Jalen more involved with the quarterback run game against BYU. Just what kind of element does that bring to the offense, and how much does that help you guys down the stretch? Well,
and I think I've said here before about the importance of making everybody respect all of our players in the field as ball carriers, right? Or to cover them. And, you know, the looks that we got in that game, you know, for him particularly to keep the ball a couple times and create some distortion and some matchup issues for people on defense. It's a big part of who we are, what we want to be able to do. We want to be stressful. That's a huge part of being stressful. His element, his athleticism to be able to keep the football and get big plays and set up big plays is a huge deal.
The offensive line has shown its ability to kind of elevate its physicality for the Illinois and BYU games. How do you take that to yet another level this week?
Well, you know, we kind of talked about physicality and how you I guess promote it and how do you develop it, and it's a balancing act between getting guys fresh, ready to go, training them the right way at certain phases of the year to from a technical standpoint about being physical and how to do it. And so you know, we don't want to be in a situation as a program where we feel like we're playing up or down to an opponent. We want to play to our standard all the time. And specifically, since you talked about physicality, we want to make sure that our standard of physicality is being met no matter who we're playing. So it's not so much about maybe rising or getting up for this opponent, because we should be doing it all the time. And I think that we do, right? And sometimes, I've said this before, I think I hold that group, especially the offensive line, to an unfair standard. You know, having been a former one myself, about the expectation of what it should look like all the time. But we'll have those standards for that group because it's the most important position group in football, right? And I think I've said it here before about really your offensive line is an indicator of your whole program and organization, the kind of people that they are, the way they play the game, how physical they are, the intention, their work ethic. It's a great indicator of what your program is like.
Andy, the other day I was talking to somebody who covers Texas, and they were saying that they thought their front seven, or whatever their front is maybe one of the best they've had in a while. What have you seen from them specifically?
From their front seven, you know, there's a lot of twitch, there's a lot of size, there's a lot of strength, but usually makes pretty good defensive football players, right? Or an offensive football players. So they have that, and combined with maybe the experience that we were talking about before and people returning, you know, it's a formidable group for sure. It is a good front seven, right? They're, you know what, that we pay much attention to rankings or care that much about it, but like they're one of the top teams in college football for a reason right now.
You mentioned the offensive line there. I think Armaj and Kobe finished the game on Saturday. What do you like about what you've seen from them in the offensive line, and what do you feel like they bring at the guard spot?
Well, two guys in Armaj and Cobes that every game that they're playing you can see improvement, and so they're stacking, you know, learning experiences on learning experiences, and their game is elevating every week to week, and it's good. And you can see, and I've always loved their athleticism as players and that physicality piece that we talked about. You know, those two guys both embody that, and the whole group does. But those two guys every week improving through the reps and getting live experiences is growing the depth in the room that we want to be able to have. And so they have been great this week. Ford's back out practicing, so he's ready to go, and we'll be rotating those guys like we typically do.
How much does the experience in your unit help when you're going into an environment like Texas for the first time this season? Yeah,
big. You know, I think luckily for our guys, we've been able to, you play in big games and big stadiums, in the past, and I think, like I've said before, experience is just the best teacher. You just can't replace it, unfortunately. And you can prepare them as much as you want until somebody actually gets in those environments and gets those real feelings. It's hard to replicate that. So having a whole group of people in our whole organization that have been in those situations before, yeah, I mean, it matters a lot to our guys in our preparation. They know what to expect. They know what crowd noise is like. You know, it's kind of fun that we didn't even bring it up. They're like, hey, we need to get the music more. We need more crowd noise to practice, and it's like, it's awesome. So they want it. And that as a teacher, I'm so proud, because when they start thinking about those kind of details, you know that there's experience that is coming to play there.
Can you extend that to just the process of a road trip? I mean, it's not just playing in somebody else's house, but it's handling your business and being on time for this and checking into your room and all that. I mean, how much does that help with guys that have been through so much of that?
Well, they know the expectations, right? And so when you're going on the road, you say, hey, the plane leaves at this time. You know, we're getting the bus in the facility at this time. And I think when you talk about the process, that goes from everything in an organization about where we're supposed to be, you know, on time with what we need to have on. But you're right, the kids understand, hey, the bus is going to leave here. We know right where it's going to go. We're going to get off that bus and walk onto the plane. And we're going to take the plane's going to land here, and then we're going to get another bus, and it's going to go to the hotel. And then in 45 minutes later, we're going to have a meeting, right? Special teams probably, whatever it would be. And then after that, we're going to have another meeting, offense, defense, and we're going to have dinner. Right, you know, so they know the routine, and it's not new. It's not a bunch of guys always checking their schedule. Oh, what do we got tonight? You know, so I think when you have returning players, obviously the experience and the reps on the field's a huge deal, but it's things like you're talking about that are hard to quantify and hard to measure, and it's just how less stressful it is. And I think we've said this before too, but then when you have new players that are coming on the trip for the first time, it's so fewer people that as coaches you really have to worry about to make sure they're where they're supposed to be and that they understand the schedule. And a lot of times, because our players do a great job, say, hey, listen, you got to be here, you know what I mean? They might be rooming with them, whatever it is. And it just is a lot less, I guess, stressful. People just are aware of the process, which is part of building a program, right? That's just part of it.
I want to go back to Jalen too real quick. We've heard you talk a million times about get the ball out quick, get the ball out quick. What's the line there with him when you watch him extend plays and hold the ball? And obviously part of that is his greatness, is the ability to do that. But how do you kind of navigate that?
It's hard. Fundamentally, what you're evaluating if a play gets extended or not, was there an opportunity for the play not to be extended by following a read or something, right, within a play. Could have been protection, it could have been the route, it could have been his eyes or whatever it is. So you look first at, you extended this play, but did you really need to? It could just been on a rhythm throw, right? That's step one. Okay, typically he's doing that. Then after that, you are trying to prepare your players for organized chaos, right? Football coaches call them scramble rules, okay, right? There are infinite number of possibilities of what that looks like in terms of what direction he's rolling out, right? The depth, what route you've ran, and your relationship to him. And so you try to prepare that. But to answer your question specifically about at what point do we just get rid of it or not, basically if it works, good job. If it doesn't, poor choice, right? That's really what it comes down to. And we want to be smart, you know, as an athlete. We want you to keep things alive, but we don't want you to stretch it too far, right? And I think the more that you play, and as he continues to play games and get experience, the more that it becomes apparent to him. And much like I was just saying with our guards, Jalen still is growing a ton, right? And every time he plays, he sees it, he grows, right? And he sits there and says, I get that, good. You know what I mean? I should have done this or done that, and that's awesome. And we have a whole group of people who collectively are trying to get better after every game and every practice. Feel like you got a chance at least.
If they were reading your blood pressure during those,
yeah, if they were okay.
What would it look like for you?
Well, it'd probably spike a little bit there, and then if it goes well, you're like, all right, yeah, just like we planned, you know, right? And then, but if it doesn't, you know, you're just saying, hey, throw it away or hit your check down or whatever it might be. Yeah.
Keaton Quebec got some run on offense against BYU. What has he shown you that makes you want to play him when you got so much depth at wide receiver?
Well, I think not just him specifically, but the whole group with a group of players that you can trust and put out there. Kind of when we were talking before a little bit about maybe Texas's D-line, about how you can rotate guys, and there's not like that's how we feel a little bit about a lot of our skill players on offense. There's some parity, and there's depth at a lot of spots. And so if we can put a player like him out there for, let's just say, 8-10 snaps, doing a good job, right? That's 8-10 snaps fewer that maybe L.J. Arnold, right? And then he instead of playing 70, he plays 60, right, or 50. Then maybe his 50 snaps are that much faster, right? Okay, you don't do those things if there's a significant or if any really kind of drop off from one player to the next. Coaches wouldn't do that. And because those guys have done a good job of training themselves to say, I can go out there and do this, okay, you can put him in the game confidently to do that. And that's not just true for Keaton, but him specifically, since you brought him, some of the same things I've talked about before. He's prepared, okay? He's physically made himself ready and available to play, okay? And when we give him a rep, he goes out there and does it correctly, and if he doesn't, we correct him, and he gets it right the next time. Just like anybody else. He's been reliable and dependable. So in that whole group, I love that receiver room because there's grittiness, there's competition, and they're all pretty happy for each other's success when they get chances. It's neat. It's cool.
Can you speak to the difficulty for a true freshman who enrolled in June to make that much stride and, I guess, earning your guys' trust that you can go out there and do that?
Yeah, it is challenging because college football is hard. I think step one for most of those players is, are you physically ready, right? And he came, shout out Westlake High School, from a great high school football program where he was developed physically really well, okay? And so he came in physically ready, and you can see those things probably when they get here on campus right away with how they train, how they lift, and how they run, you know what I mean? Like, you can see that there's not as much maybe development in those general physical areas, okay? Then, to your point, are you prepared mentally to embrace all the things that we do to put stress and anxiety on the defense? And if you check those two boxes and you're able to perform, then you can get out there. But it is challenging for anyone that's young. And as you were asking our guys, as soon as they figure out the key concepts, like I've said here before, all the Lego pieces start to fit together a little bit easier. But you have to get a clear definition of what those Lego pieces are first.
Just following up on something you mentioned there, you tailor things, people's individual skill sets, and that goes along with the rotation. When you're dealing with heat like you will in Austin, how does that kind of affect or complement the way that you already choose to rotate?
Well, it should help us a ton. That's a great point. I hadn't even thought about that. We're doing it because of heat. Okay, all right? But, heck, guys, our players, and a credit to them, it's stinking hot around here now in June, July, and August, and September. It's warm. And I don't know the averages. Maybe we could, Daniel, if you're prepared, we'd have the average weather here lately and how it's compared, right? But yeah, our guys are ready for it. So we're not any more concerned than we are when we were playing our first games and practices and how we go about training our guys and make sure they're healthy and hydrating them and all that kind of stuff.
And just looking at Devin, he had a tremendous year last year. This year's been phenomenal. How much growth and kind of what have you seen from him over the summer and really from last year to now? Well,
and I don't know if we've talked in here before about it, but I feel like I've answered something like this before in the sense of you sit down with every player at the end of a year and you say, here's what, for you to take the next step. And every player has an individual next step, right? Devin being kind of an all-conference player, what's the next step for an all-conference player? To do it again, okay? What do you have to do that? You tell him specifically, and some of the things that came up he's addressed, and I think when you watch him play this year, the two things that stick out are, one, his diversified skill set, the different spots that he's able to do and play, and two, his patience while running. Not that, and I think sometimes that's an overused word and term when describing a running back, but his patience and understanding of a run scheme and where he's going to fit and where this blocker is coming to or from. And he's very inquisitive about the schemes and understanding, and he'll ask questions, say, what is he doing this, and that, was he going to go like this, is he supposed to talk like that guy, blah, 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 because he wants to understand it. So his desire to grow is at a high level, okay, and he's in a high stratosphere with that. So his desire to do that, but then his willingness and understanding to take the next step and actually listen to that kind of feedback about what he's got to do to get better.
Has that kind of led to more film room sessions with him and you one-on-one? Or?
Not so much with me and him one-on-one, but Coach Wallace, I know, spending time with him, a lot, and their meetings, and the time that all those individuals will spend on their own watching that kind of stuff, he does a great job with it. So he's a high-capacity guy.
Has he exceeded your expectations as a receiving option?
Exceeded?
Yeah.
I don't know if I would say he's exceeded them. But he is, you know what I mean, right? So I don't want to sit there and say, I don't ever want to, pigeonhole a guy, say he can't, he's not a receiving option.
Sure.
But I think when you challenge skilled players in general to diversify themselves in ways beyond just the traditional things that we all think about within a position, it makes them more feasible to use them a lot of different ways. And again, we're talking about competition. We're talking about the parity, perhaps, right? Because you could come in here one day and say you should put 3 running backs on the field at the same time. The next day you could say put 3 tight ends in the field at the same time. Next day you should be putting 3 or 4 receivers in the field at the same time. And those would all be accurate things to say. So what the players are starting to figure out is they're not only competing within their position group, but they're competing with other positions on who gets on the field and how. And so when you can, like your point, diversify yourself to be things beyond just stand behind the quarterback and take a handoff, you get yourself in the field more.
A few times this season we've seen those first few offensive series in the game not be as crisp or clean as you might want to see. Not only how important is it against Texas to get off to a fast start, but what are some of the keys for that?
Well, ability to execute, one, no bad ball, right? Okay, when you look at, and we study this, spend time looking at what stops drives. It's every year, every time this season, it's been something that we've done. It's been a self-inflicted wound to some degree. So step 1, no bad ball. But then step 2, making sure we're going out there and executing what we're planning to do. Okay, and if it doesn't go well, a drive, right? What if you don't score a touchdown every drive, right? Even though that's our kids' standard right now, is every time we take the field, they want to score a touchdown. I don't know that it's fair to call it a failure if they don't, right? But I love that they have that high standard and that we have that high standard to do that. But you take every drive and every play as its own individual piece, right? And if you do it well enough, consistently enough, you usually win the game. If it's poor enough, consistently enough, you usually don't. So I think they do a good job of taking it one snap at a time. I think the last game was a great example of that. I think we had 4 possessions in the first half. You know what I mean? And in 3 of them didn't go correct, right? And then you come out in the second half and you start going and rolling, right? And there was no stress. There was no, what the heck's going on? You know what I mean? There was like, okay, we got this, right? And so I love that they're mature enough to recognize that and respond to any form of adversity. Because it's big-time football, man. You're going to face adversity every game. Something's not going to go your way. You got to figure out how to overcome it.
Anything else for Coach?
Okay, appreciate y'all. Have a good day.